God damn it.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. Take the truth. I'll set you free.
I think something had to do with my cord maybe it wasn't in all the way or something. That's what she said. Yeah, there we go.
It's a mystery, Zoom. It's always a mystery.
I don't know. What can you do? How you doing, man?
I'm good, Jason. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, man.
And hear you.
Yeah.
Are you in Chicago?
Yeah. Did you come back to Chicago, or are you still out yonder?
I was in Chicago over the past, off and on over the past year.
Okay.
My partner lives there, and didn't know how long things were going to shut down, but it was kind of back and forth. But now I'm back west now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let me just do a short intro here, and we'll just jump into things because there's a lot to talk about. So, hey, welcome everybody to another episode of Face the Truth. I just want to say real quick, there was supposed to be a podcast with a comedian, and he's still, a lot of people did some fan art and stuff. That's still happening. Maybe next week. I'm not sure yet. So, don't worry about that. Your artwork will be seen at some point, and we'll be talking to him soon. The other thing is, real quick, to get out of the way, I am going to be doing stand-up comedy this week at Chicago Improv in Schaumburg, and I am going to be opening for Steve Byrne at the 9 o'clock shows Friday and Saturday, and then 7 o'clock on Sunday. So if you're in the Chicago area and you want to come see some stand-up, it would be awesome to see you. I'm super nervous and scared, but I'm going to have a fun time. And Steve Byrne is hilarious. He's trying out his brand new hour. It's going to be awesome. There's food, there's drinks. I think you have to buy, I don't think it's by the ticket. I think it's by the table. So anyway, just want to let everyone know that. Other than that, it's good to be talking with my guest this week. I've known this fella for some years now, and we go way back in the good old days. And I first became aware of him with his music, which I've always been blown away by his music. I've seen him play live at least 20-25 times or more, probably. Love his music, love his albums, and of course besides the fact that I think he's a brilliant musician and singer, but it's the lyrics, and half the time, I'll be honest, I don't know what the fuck he's saying. I have to read the lyrics over and over again because they're so tricky. You know what I'm saying? No, but I love his poetry and his writing. It really pulls everything together and packages it into just something amazing, a beautiful piece of art. So I'm really excited to have him on. Also, he's the first poet that I've ever had on here, so this is going to be really cool. And he's got a new book to promote. So everyone, please welcome Cameron McGill. So thank you so much, man.
Just thank you for that introduction and for having me on. Honored to be here, and I will always, I'm not sure I've ever been the first poet to do anything. So this is I'll take that. I think most poets will.
Well, no, this podcast is like just a love passion of my own. I love to be able to talk with as many kinds of artists as possible. And I've had anybody you can think of, from like painters to sculptors to people that work in film and everything, but I haven't had a poet yet. So, and I remember I went to see you play in Evanston. Like, was that a year and a half ago or more? Just before the pandy?
Yeah. I think I did a show in Evanston Space in maybe it was like July of 19. Would that have been right?
gosh, this pandemic
It wasn't last year.
It's like, yeah, the pandemic really did a weird thing to time. Like everything seems like wait, that wasn't, it's strange. But anyways, yeah, I wanted you to do it around that time, but things got just busy and crazy. But
yeah,
anyways, how's it been going, man, with the with what you've been doing and the pandemic thing and all that kind of stuff? Because it's been crazy.
I mean, what to say? Just trying to stay healthy and stay alive and stay in contact with myself and other people.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, just really trying to I don't know. I think it became a question of like, well, what is life going to be like now? Making sure that your friends and family are okay, like trying to take care of your loved ones, trying to like, not lose touch with the world, right? And not feel isolated. But of course, it's like most people, it seemed like it was really difficult to not feel isolated, right? And but I think the priorities shifted in a lot of ways, and I guess I was grateful to have some creative projects to work on, and you never know, right? Like if it's going to be a time where like something like that like just takes it all out of you.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you, is if I've been asking a lot of artists this, whether they're painters or whatever they do, but I mean, everyone's affected differently by something like this, but surely, someone like you who's putting your thoughts into stories and poems and whatever else. I mean, was this inspiring in any way? Like, did it inspire any kind of different poetry from you, or sometimes you don't even want to think about what's going on. You just want to pretend it's not happening.
Yeah. And it didn't, I wouldn't say it inspired me. It terrified me.
That might be the wrong wording. Yeah.
Well, I know what you're saying in terms of drawing some kind of resonance from like, what this makes us think about or reconsider in our daily lives, in our relationships, in our work, in our creative work. I think it is a priority shifter, but mainly it terrified me. And I think having this, being able to have deadlines for like over the past year for the book publication process, and like that was a year-long process, pretty much over like the entire, like from March of 20 to the book coming out this week. I was grateful to have work that I needed to do throughout that process, right? Like it kind of did keep me sane to have some deadlines.
Yeah.
Like the publisher needs these things by this time, and that was like, okay, well, that's some things I can take joy in because it's fun to be in that process, but also something to kind of like ground my mind, which otherwise I think would have been, just spooling outward and maybe not focused. So it was good to have that to maybe balance the fear and anxiety and maybe that sense of displacement that I think a lot of people have perhaps still. No,
that makes a lot of sense. When you get a project, like a book project like that, do you is it all brand new poems for this book?
That's a good question. So
that seems like a lot to do in that amount of time.
Yes. This is many years in the process, of course. My first book was a chapbook that came out last February, like right before the pandemic hit. And that was a book called Meridians. A lot of the poems from that first book, which was a much shorter book, it was like a 25-page chapbook. Most of those poems are also in this longer book, plus another 25 poems or so. So part of that process was like figuring out a new revisions, new edits to those poems, new ways that they were organized sequentially. I really organized the books differently, like conceptually. And when, having more poems this time, it took a lot longer to sequence. I mean, I'm thinking of like sequencing a 10 or 12 song album.
Yeah.
Which always seemed difficult. And then when you're sequencing a 100-page book, you're like, oh, this is, there's a lot more options.
I mean, I love poetry. I'm not, but I'll be honest, like I'm one of these people, like, I'll read, like I have to read the poem like over and over again. Cause I'm getting, a lot of times I'm getting so many different, like, what are they talking about? And then I read it again. I'm like, wait, maybe it's this. And some poems are way more straightforward. But I love the art of like it's the creative use of a word to almost, and I guess, I don't know if this makes sense, but misdirect on purpose to what is actually the point of the whole thing. I don't know if that makes sense what I'm trying to say, but like, I feel like, sometimes when I read like your poetry or different poetry like that, where it's like a living painting, because I'm seeing things when I'm reading the poetry,
images,
like I kind of get stuck while I'm reading it, and I have to start over again because I realize, oh my gosh, I don't even know what's happening now, because I just started seeing flowers and I started seeing this and maybe smelling things. So it takes me a while sometimes to read poetry, because I'm like, it's like a little bit overstimulating sometimes, if that makes sense. But what I guess my point is you as a songwriter, a musician, and a poet, does that even happen? Does that kind of thing happen while you're writing it? Do you ever just all of a sudden stop writing because you're thinking about something else? All of a sudden it makes you think of something else? Or I'm still so curious about the process of writing, because it seems it seems so I don't know, chaotic, I guess, in a way. Can you set like a theme, like for example, does your book have a theme or an idea, and you're trying to write in that direction, but then sometimes something else comes and you just go with it? Or I guess I'm just curious because this is so foreign to me.
I mean, yes. About writing and thinking about something else and stopping and switching directions. Yes, all the time. Finding some, be it a song or a poem, finding some sort of like a slipstream that you can stay in for the moment, right? And stop and not question the process, but try to just pull a thread through and see how long you can stay with it, be it a painting or a song or a poem, trying to stay in that moment or whatever, not ruining that moment for yourself. But there's those times when, I don't really ever go into a poem thinking like this is going to be about this. I mean, I might have an idea of a memory of something that I want to get at the heart of the emotional resonance that was there for me, or I'm interested in an image, but I never start out with any idea of like what that poem's going to be about. And the process of writing, I write all my poems by hand in a pencil in an old, college rule notebook, like spiral notebook, which allows me to vary the speed of transcribing thought process to page. And it's really messy, and I can erase things or cross them out or whatever, you know what I mean? Like it's a very organic process to me in that way than it is later when I sit down and type things up into the computer. That's always been kind of a buzzkill for me. So I kind of like that part of the process, and it if you're lucky, it goes in a direction you didn't expect. Right? Like, and I love, I mean, I want the poem to surprise me. It's like very rare that I will surprise it, but your point about when you were reading, you had to stop and start over. I had to do that all the time. I mean, I feel like I'm the slowest reader out there. But a poem is not a news article, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's asking you to slow down. It's asking you to think about language in a way that we don't normally use it. And
Yeah.
I don't mean heightened in a way that's like false or putting on airs necessarily, but just it is using language in a different way.
Yeah.
To get at a resonance. And so I love that you're seeing images, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I see it that way. Like I see like each line as like a brushstroke on a painting.
Sure. Okay.
Like, because I dissect paintings. I'll look at a painting and I'm like, so I'm seeing how the process is and understanding and seeing the form and all that kind of stuff. But that's what it feels like to me when I'm reading poetry. I'm like, right, this is just building. So like, I'll have to go back. Like I'll read like half the poem. I'll get one more sentence more. And I'm like, wait, okay, now I got to go back and read it again. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I need to catch up on what's happening. Yeah.
Right. And you know, sometimes, oftentimes I think, I think of it as like, there's not always going to be a direct line or like a narrative that is as easily followable, maybe as like a story or something. Sometimes there will be, right, narrative threads in there, but like seeing, I don't know, like I don't know anything about painting, like at all. I once went to like a Van Gogh Gauguin exhibit in Chicago, like early on in my time in Chicago, and I was so like the beauty of the paintings struck me, and you know, just going to the museum, that I was just like moved to go to the art store right after the museum. And I went to Blick and I spent like $350 on paints and little canvas and proceeded to make two of the worst paintings that have ever been done in the history of painting. but it didn't matter because I was so interested and moved to try to make some collection of marks on a canvas that at the end of it was the perception of some sort of an image or picture. And of course I didn't remotely get there, but like, I love that idea of things being impressionistic and being a writing that gets at not necessarily the reality of what you may see out your window, but something that is your unique perception of the world. And that engagement with it. So, you know, letting those things emerge from the poem, from the painting, I think is part of like doing the work of being a spectator, of reading, of looking at art, of reading, right? Like it's our participation with other people.
Oh yeah. And something like that, like you experiencing the artwork like that. Yeah, maybe the paintings didn't turn out, but I'm sure that there's a poem or two in you that comes out because of that experience.
Maybe so, yeah.
You know, and you know, I heard someone recently, I think it was a comedian or something, they said something that was really interesting to me, is that like the thoughts, there's like these the thoughts are just around, and our job is to just to grab, like it's, you know, he's talking about like when we have like this amazing thought or idea about something, he's like, where did that come from? Right. You know, like, and his whole idea is like they're just streaming around, and every once in a while we just grab one. We're like, oh, I got one, I caught one. And I thought that was just like a really weird, interesting thing to think about. But like when it comes to writing, like for me, I've been writing comedy stuff lately, and it's like I might have like a funny idea or premise, and I find it's very forceful to like try to sit there and try to just, you know, like it doesn't seem to ever work if I'm trying to force like to write out an idea. I might have a funny premise or a punchline and have to figure out what do I say to set that up, so that, because I think that's a funny idea. But what I end up seeing, what ends up really happening is none of that stuff works. But what works is when I'm just hanging out with some people talking, and all of a sudden they all start laughing at something. And I'm like, what did I just say that was so funny? And then I write that down and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is material. And I find that it just happens naturally, and you just got to pay attention. And that's the stuff that is interesting, and it almost writes itself. I feel like with like poetry, because I've tried to write poetry before, and my experience with it, and you know, I've written, I usually end up writing silly, funny things. But like when I've tried to write serious poetry before, it's so for me, it's like one of those things where I always feel like it's trying too hard. I'm trying too hard to be like artsy fartsy or, all this kind of stuff. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, with your stuff, it always impresses me and blows me away, because I get pulled into it in a way where I'm like, how does he do that? How does he, like, because your use of language and how you present and set something up it's almost well, it's almost poetic. No, but I do see like a layering, if that makes sense. That's why I say I feel like I have to go back and I want to read this again, because by the time I get to the end, it's not what I thought it was at the beginning. And but it sounds like what you were saying, that you don't really force it either. It kind of just seems to flow natural in a way, or you let it be natural.
I mean, I think there's several parts of the process, at least for me. Trying to get a handwritten draft down on the page is just like, you have to let anything happen. Like I want those to be experiments more than anything. And even if it's just one line that comes out of that page or two of writing, maybe that one line will be in a poem.
Okay. Yeah.
And so being open to, it just being a start to the process. And then, of course, the editing process of going through something you've written and trying to mold it into a poem.
Yeah. Okay.
Just did this, but sometimes poems look like that. To allow both this draft process and then this craft process. Those are kind of like very different and enjoyable processes. And some poems need more editing than others. Sometimes you catch like a streak of something that makes a lot of sense in that moment, and you can kind of stay in there for a bit, and that's encouraging. But so many poems are really, made in the editing process.
That's interesting.
I think your point about like you think of like a punchline, and that you're like, well, how do I get there? I think there's been times where I've maybe done that, where I've thought about, what I'm hoping to get at in a poem. But I find that anytime I like know where I'm going to end, or I think I should like end with this line, it's always a terrible idea for me. Like I never get to that place then in the right way. Oh, interesting. It always ends up being circuitous route, to what you hope for it to be. And whatever you think at the beginning, like if I think like, oh, that's the last line of the poem before I've really written the poem, it's like, how could I possibly know? And then oftentimes it becomes very clear later that was the first line.
Interesting.
It wasn't the end of the poem at all. But having not written the poem, I didn't know shit about it. You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah.
So I love this idea that as you're writing it, and then as a reader, that a poem teaches you how to read it. And then maybe as you keep going in the process, it teaches you how to write it in some way as well. Or you see the different ways that the different moves you can do, which of course is where our influence comes in, right? Which I'm sure is similar in visual art to some degree. It's like, we pull influences from other artists all the time, right? Part of an amalgamation of our own style or whatever, right? I don't know.
No, that makes perfect sense. It's funny. When I first started, I was first asked to open for a comedian, and I had never done stand-up before, and I was going to do. I couldn't believe it, and I was super scared. And I had 5.5 months or so to come up with 5 minutes of material, and realized real quick how hard it was to come up with something good.
It's a long time.
And one of the first things I wrote was, which I still think is hilarious, but I've never written anything for it, but it's just the punchline, and it might not make sense to anyone, but I think it's so funny, and it's just fuck dolphins. I just think that's the funniest thing, because who would say fuck dolphins? And I'm like, there's something there that's really funny. And and eventually maybe I'll come up with the beginning part, and that the punchline is fuck dolphins. But I tried like writing some things, and everything was just stupid. I'm like, I'm forcing this idea so that I can end up saying fuck dolphins at the end. And it's not working, but it's there. But it's funny, because that's how some ideas come, where I'll just, certain words will come in, or combinations where I think is funny. And I'm sure it's similar when you're like, you might have you might want to say, I mean, I'm just pulling things out of nowhere right now, but you're like, hey, I really like the word raconteur. That's a great word. Yeah. And then like just build a whole poem off of it or whatever. But I'm sure, I mean, it's like artists do the same thing with, like, I really want to paint something that's monochromatic with just a little hint of color. And then you start with that idea, and it ends up being a completely different painting. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's interesting. I don't know, like, to me, like I said, I get really inspired by art that I'm not as familiar with, that really kind of, like how you got inspired when you saw those paintings. So like when I read good poetry, it's just like, it's so funny. I'm the kind of person too, where it's like, I read something like that, and I'm like, it's almost like a flip flop of what you said. Like, oh, I want to write poetry. Like, I get so inspired, and I'm like, but yeah, no, I usually write stupid poems to my mom for Mother's Day and stuff like that. But
not stupid at all, though. I mean, like, I love that people like, it's so interesting. Like, we hear poems at like, at funerals or wakes or weddings or on special occasions, and people go to them at these times, at these major milestones in life. But I think there's just something to be said about the fact that, like, for poets, poetry is there every single day. Like, it's something that accompanies, pretty much every waking moment of my life. That's not to say I'm like writing poems all the time, but like your living experience, your lived experience, is part, is a huge part of where your poems come from, and reading other people and experiencing other art, and that's a huge part of it as well. So
it's very intimate.
That you're,
well, I know.
Like, that's a perfect reason to write a poem.
Yeah. No, I like to write. I like to, I'm always trying to get my mom to laugh and stuff like that. So I like write ridiculous things, but I find it kind of interesting. Like, poetry seems to be so, like, it's so intimate and so kind of, like exposing yourself a little bit, don't you think, a little bit? Because like, you feel in a way that you're almost getting, like, if you're reading a poem from someone that you really admire, you're reading a book of their poems. I think one of the things that's amazing about it is you feel like you're with them or in their mind a little bit. And it's an interesting way of communication, especially if it's like, serious things that you can relate to, or that, you're not even expecting to maybe get emotional, and all of a sudden it makes you emotional. I just think it's very powerful. It can be really powerful. Yeah. It's interesting. It's a really interesting art form as well, because along with the fact that you write your poetry, but then also with your music, that, how it can, with you, go between the different mediums so flawlessly. Like, were you?
I don't know about flawlessly.
Well, what I mean is, like, you write your poetry, you've got your books and everything else, but then to me, the music is like just almost like a living version of that, and it, because it's not just your poetry, it's the notes that you decided to play on the piano, how you sing, and how you communicate those words differently, and it brings it to a different place than if you were just reading it.
Yeah.
And then another thing that if you've never seen Cameron play live, he is one of the most like animated performers, where just his expressions and everything going in the way his body's moving with the music, and like it's an experience because you're really feeling it all come to life, you know? I mean, is that something that you're conscious about? Because it's really, I don't know, it's what really drew me into your music right away. Like when I first started listening to your music, I was like, this is way different than and I was always, you know, surprised that like when I first heard I can't remember what the first record was, but I was surprised how not everyone in the world was like knew what this was. You know what I mean? Because it was like this. First time I heard the record was through my wife Jacqueline, and she had been a fan and everything before, and she'd introduced me, and so I was like, "What? Where has this been? This is amazing." You know? This is like so good.
I mean, I'm glad that was your reaction. Like it's certainly playing songs is like it's always been a visceral kind of process for me. And I don't know if it's just like the physical manifestation of the emotions of the songs, or I mean, honestly, whatever it is, like the moving around, like part of it is me feeling the rhythm in my own kind of weird pocket. But part of it is probably also just like trying to hit the note and doing whatever physically I have to do. You know what I mean? Like it's not calculated. It's just like, well, when my songs come out, this is the way they come out. And if I were better, a better singer, or a better breather, trained in terms of, you know, my voice a bit more, I'm sure, you know, it would be a more stoic performance in some ways. But for me, it's just like, you know, whatever I got to do physically for the most part.
I think those raw aspects are actually what I think they're strengths, to be honest, because
sure. They have to be, right? Because that's just the way that I do it now. You know, some people may like it, some people may not, but like, I never wanted to detract from the song. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't want to, you know, have it be part of the act. It's just like, how do you perform? You know, everybody, you know, performs differently, but that's just, you know, I just kind of try to, like, much like it is with the poem, like, what is that performance? Where is that taking me? You know, and it's like, you write a song from 10 years ago, you write a song, you play it at a show, you may feel different emotions from that song a decade later than you did right then.
Yeah.
And not always, and often not feeling it less, but in some ways feeling it more.
For sure.
Like, it's like you never really know where you're going to like reapproach your work from, and hopefully it's from a place that still provides you.
Yeah, or you come back and go, what was I thinking?
Well, sure. I mean, there's plenty of shit that's hard. You know, going back to the first record from 2003 or whatever. You know, you have to make some peace with your past work in terms of. I mean, I always have like that. That was what I did then at that time. That was probably the best I could do at that time. And it was a different perspective than I have now, but it was just
of course
part of my learning. Right. And so,
I
don't know. I like that though. I like that was what drew you in, because that's such a human thing that we share. It's a reaction to emotion. And if that's a way into the songs, then.
Well, it's interesting too, because like watching you play live, it's, you know, it was, you know, I think the first time I saw you play, you were just doing piano.
That's possible.
And I think the second time I saw you play, I don't think there was much piano. And all of a sudden you're playing guitar. And I remember thinking, oh, I thought he was just a piano player. And all of a sudden you're like, this guy can play guitar, man. It was, and it was interesting because both versions were interesting in their own ways. Like because you play guitar in a very unique way. You play, you know, like compared to like how, you know, because I play guitar, and you know, and I've been in a lot of bands, different things, and I remember noticing like just when you play guitar, it was an interesting I don't know how to explain it, man. Just people got to listen to the music. It's hard to explain, but
ham-fisted.
yeah.
I mean, it's
no, it was,
it's all
you have an interesting,
there's that aspect of it.
You have an interesting aesthetic, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like, there's a sound. There's like a sound that's unique, you know, that I really thought was awesome. You know, you were doing, what do you call it? At Shuba's, remember you did like a week or
residency?
It was like a residency. I don't know how many weeks it was, or it was like something.
Probably I think I did 2 there throughout my time in Chicago, and it was like a month. You played like every Monday of the month in 4 weeks or whatever.
I remember going to a bunch of them, and it was like almost different every time, like the show. And I was like, well, this is cool because he's just mixing things up. And I was just talking to Jackie about this today. One song you did, I'm trying to remember exactly. Oh yeah. The Chris Isaak song, Wicked Game.
Oh man, yeah. Right.
Is like, I'll never forget that performance because I mean, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your ass. That was better than the original. I mean, it was so awesome to hear your version of that song. And it was like, where can I get, is that like, did you ever record that?
No, I mean, like, you know, the hard work had already been done. It's a but sung beautifully. I mean, like, you know, it was a song we were just really into at that time. I think that might have been the final.
It was so awesome, man.
Like when Gallows Etiquette came out, and I don't know. I think we did a Chris Isaak song. I think we did a Sade song, and we were just like feeling those vibes. And so it's like, well, what's our version of that as best we can? But yeah, I love that song, man. I think the first time we ever did it was that one Shuba's show, maybe.
Yeah. It was awesome, dude. It was really cool to hear, you know, I love when a band does a cover of a song that everyone knows, but they take it to someplace else and they make it their own. And that's definitely what it was. It was pretty awesome. It was cool. Thanks I wish it was recorded, man.
Was that a full band? I think it was with the full band, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think that would have been Charlie and Rodrigo and I.
Yeah, it was Rodrigo. I remember he was there.
Man. Yeah. That was fun. Thanks for reminding me of that. That was I don't know.
I think if I remember correctly, that's like all I was talking about like the entire way home was that was amazing how good that song was. Like it was just like I remember playing the original song afterwards because I wanted to hear it again. And I was like, it's not quite what I just heard.
Oh,
yeah. You pulled it off, man. You pulled it off. So
good. I'm glad.
What came first, the chicken or the egg? So what were you into poetry way before the music? Or was it the music first and then you're like, hey, I have to learn how to write words. I'm going to be in a band, you know?
Man, yeah, I love that. I love that question. You know, for me, songwriting and music was something I started first, and was really my entrance to poetry when I started meeting other songwriters and people through music that would turn me on to poets and things like that. And you know, I started. Somebody gave me a guitar, you know, in high school. It was like a youth group acoustic guitar situation, which, you know, sounds atrocious. But you know, you know, it was a great gesture and one that certainly opened up my life in a way I wouldn't have expected. And not having really any. I mean, I took some piano lessons as a kid, and I couldn't for the life of me look at a sheet music and play, you know, row your fucking boat or whatever.
Yeah,
couldn't really do that, but I just wanted to make things up. You know what I mean? Like I just wanted to sit at the piano and like come up with melodies and like try to write a song. Like I was so much more interested in that than I was with like, you know, like learning how to play properly, which, you know, whatever. Maybe I was lazy. Maybe I was just like trying to do something I was interested in. But it was music first for me. And yeah, studying songwriting, studying how people wrote songs, studying lyrics. I was always really interested in lyrics from the go, you know? And I think that was my way of like training my ear for poetry was all the years of writing songs. And and putting lyrics to melodies. Now, I mean, I think of them as different animals. I mean, I think of them as different practices and I think they have a lot of, you know, craft elements and writing techniques in common. But like, I think sometimes the things that really work words wise, lyrics wise in a song don't necessarily always translate to me to sounding right musically in a poem.
Yeah.
And vice versa, you know? And I think once I found, I mean, to your point, like with chicken or the egg, like for a long time, even after I became interested in poems, everything I wrote, I tried to cram into a song.
Okay.
Hence that my third record, you know, Street Ballads and Murderesques, which, you know, is all like 7-minute folk songs with pages and pages of lyrics. And everything I put down on the page, I was like, well, this has to be a song because that's what I do. But once it was opened up to me that like there's this whole other art form that can just be words, and all of the music and all of the accompaniment and all of the production, as it were, from music, from songs, from playing in bands, it has to be just in the words, right? There is no accompaniment other than the sounds, the rhythms, the repetitions, the images, whatever you write on the page, right? There isn't a backing band. Like the way you structure the poem with white space, with form, with stanzas, with line breaks, all of that is your way of like building like the sonic aspects of a poem. And it was like somebody just flipped a switch. And then that, you know, must have been in the maybe 2004 when I really started writing things that just weren't ever going to be songs. And it just kind of like opened up my purview of the world and myself creatively. I was just like, well, shit.
Yeah,
that's helpful.
Because that's an interesting thing you bring up too, because that's another thing. Because I've been, I think I saw you a few times, but once I remember at the Hop Leaf, you did poetry upstairs.
Yeah, right.
But just watching you do poetry, it's like that's a performance in itself, because you know it's one thing to write something out, but then when you go up there and I'm not talking it was a foggy Saturday night. It's not that kind of shit. It's like
dames, I tell you, dames.
Yeah. You say it with a rhythm, but it's not really musical. It's you know, there's a reason in the way you pause or the way you really pronunciate certain words.
Yeah,
that's got to be something that, I mean, where did you, I mean, is that because that's really something that you really have to work on as well? I mean, that's an art right there, you know, the performance part of it.
Sure. I mean, it's like in like anything, it's like it's slightly different every time, and whatever emotion you're bringing to that reading or that musical performance, like that day, you know, influences, you know, the way you approach the work. I think it's just reading aloud. And, you know, when I left Chicago in 2015 to go back to grad school, I mean, I was 39 years old, I guess. And I began, you know, I probably had already been doing this, but like, I read aloud a lot when I'm working on a poem. And, I mean, it's annoying to me sometimes, you know, maybe that's why I live alone, but I had to, like, going back to school after 17 years and going to grad school for poetry and like learning all the things, learning from my fellow students and my teachers, is like the musicality in poems, like, was really like a musical sense of my ear was really the only thing I was bringing with me. That and like a whole ton of emotions. but like what was something that I had finely tuned over the years was really just my ear. And so reading aloud, all the time when I'm writing poems, when I'm editing them, and then like in terms of trying to prepare for a reading, it's like, I think it's years and years of work to find like what is my voice when I'm talking with you right now, and how different is it when if I read you a poem. Like a performance is always going to be some kind of performance, right? I mean, even if you don't like, I mean, I'm not like trying to like drastically change my voice. I'm sure there's been times where I have, and people would probably give me shit for it. That's okay. Everybody takes time to find the way that they want to hear, see, feel their own art.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean,
it's the same thing it's the same thing like when I'm doing stand-up stuff. Like I practice my 5 minutes that I'm working on right now. And it's one thing to have the jokes, to have the material,
right?
But you can't just go up there and just say it. Like
no.
It's about face expression. It's about do it. Like just going sometimes like there's like things you add that people aren't ready. You don't just go up there and read it. It has to be a performance,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, timing, right? I mean,
yeah, exactly.
The delivery, like so much of that goes into making the words come alive in the way that you're wanting them to come alive in that moment. I mean, that becomes just as much of the art, right? It's
a huge part of it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a world I know nothing about, but I can only imagine.
But I mean, I think it's a very similar thing.
Yeah.
Maybe
so.
Because I mean, I have gone to different poetry things because, I'm kind of artsy, and there's sometimes it's so boring. I'm like, where's the pistol? Shove in my mouth. Like I came in drinking wine, I left drinking whiskey. But like
it's possible.
Yeah. But that's because, or it's I think it is a fine line between like, wow, this is so boring, or this person is over the top and you're like, oh, it's too much.
Yeah, I mean, like anything,
exactly.
Performance wise, there's different types of performances, for bands, for performance artists, for poets. Like not everybody's gonna, it's like you're not gonna like every band, you're not gonna like every or every performance artist or poet and their delivery,
But does that give you anxiety, like at all? Because
it doesn't, because I don't expect anybody to like anything.
Yeah.
I mean, like if what I do speaks to you because you like the poem, or you're not annoyed by how I read it, or you're my friend and you're doing me a favor and you're like, those are great poems. All of that is fine to me. I mean, to read, I mean, like anybody, I'm sure I've been to plenty of performances where like the singer or drummer just annoyed the shit out of me, and I was like, I don't, this is bumming me out. I mean, right? I mean, everybody has that, right? It's like you can't love everything, but I think there's space. Yeah, there's space for all of it. Because,
but I mean, that's the thing.
Love somebody else.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, about art and performing art is, I think it takes a lot of balls in general just to get up there and to do it, and or no balls at all. Yeah, or but I mean, just like but I mean, like the I'm not talking literally here, but like. Just to like, the performing part of things is something that's always going to be a challenge, I think, for me anyways. That's a huge part of art in general, and it's just like, even like, how you present yourself even as an artist when you have paintings in a show and all that kind of stuff, because that's part of, I think, the creative process, is that you don't know how the audience is going to react and how they're going to respond. Do you find that, like, with your poetry, do you practice your performance with your reading certain poems, like to a point where you do it exact, or do you sometimes feel the crowd differently and kind of just, you know, change things up a little, or change it after an experience and realize maybe it didn't come across the right way? I'm just curious because it's all interesting, I think, from a performing standpoint, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm so sorry to do this. Someone was knocking at the door. Is there a way that I could just pause for 2 seconds?
Don't worry, no worries.
So sorry, man. So I had to
no worries.
Sign for a package. Sorry. We can fix that in post, right?
Yeah. Don't worry about
it. Okay. So, could you repeat that? It was a question about the performance side. Sorry.
Well, no, I was just saying, like, I think.
Oh, in terms of practicing, it was like, do I practice the reading?
Well, yeah, and also, like, you know, I imagine you, like, for example, I've been practicing lately because I've got a show coming up, and I think a bit works, and then I do it, and it works really well, and then I'll do it again the next time, and I'm like, oh, that really, maybe I didn't really do it the right way, or you start to kind of, does the reaction ever change your performance, I guess, or how you maybe think about how you're going to do it, or, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, once I'm, you know, through the process of like writing the poems and going through and editing the book with the editor and reading through all of the versions, you know, I've read this aloud so many times, and I've read the individual poems aloud so many times that I try not to, I don't have it like where at this line I'm going to necessarily do this. I think there's certain times where you feel where the pauses are, and you feel where maybe the emotional, you know, part of your voice usually comes out, or things like that. But I think in just having read them a lot, you feel close to like the way you want to say them because you've done it so many times. Yeah. But yeah, I'll still sometimes, you know, look at the ones I'm going to read for a reading. And if I haven't read them in a long time, you know, I want to remind myself of places where I paused and places where I know I had difficulty reading a line. And sometimes I'll read those again to remind myself of like where my head was at.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's really it. Not so much like on a micro level, but I just let it be whatever that performance is that time.
Yeah, that's interesting.
You know.
Yeah, because I've noticed, like when it's a difference between like writing something alone in my room, and then when I go to perform it, I learn something new about like what I was even saying, because the reaction is so different. And then sometimes something else will just come to me right there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I just changed everything. And it's, you know, sometimes it's like, oh, I have a new thing, because for some reason, when you're actually performing in front of people, saying it out loud, it's like, oh, that's different. That's way different when people are there listening. Yeah, that's what I mean about what I meant about anxiety, because like, you know, I think it's kind of a, you know, what's the right word? I don't know. I can't think of it right now. I'm not the poet.
No, I know. I mean, I know exactly what you're talking about, though. Yes, reading a poem in my room by myself, and then being on a Zoom or being in front of people, especially if it's live in front of people. I remember those first times I ever did any kind of reading of my poetry outside of the poems, probably not being any good, was like, you know, all of a sudden, because I was nervous, I started doing something like this or this every, you know, it's like, when did I start touching my ear every time I read a poem? I've never done that before. But like tonight, I decided I'm going to keep doing this. And it's just like, you do it twice, and then you're like, well, better keep doing it. You know, it's like, you get in this weird kick. And so I think those things
that's interesting.
Often emerge right where nerves or anxiety manifest themselves physically. And that can affect the performance. I mean, I think I used to always struggle with that with playing music, trying to get the fuck out of my own way.
Yeah. That's the trick, man.
Yeah, right. I mean, it seems everything, it's about getting, I mean, and that's always been maybe my hamstring. And it's like, I think part of it has something to do with trying to be in the moment, trying to be present, which has not ever been something I've been good at. And to try to enjoy the moment. I mean, so many years of playing music, I just never enjoyed because I was so nervous. So anxiety. It was really hard for me to enjoy the moment. And thus, of course, I was tense, or like my voice felt constricted. You know, I was anxious, all these things. All of that shit affected the performance and maybe my ability to enjoy it, which is, I mean, it's such a big part of it. It's like, why else am I doing these things if not to like take some joy from it, right?
It is a weird thing, like because like it's funny because I used to be in bands and performed on stage. I never felt nervous. I was so comfortable on stage. There was only like one time I can think of where I played an outdoor music festival, and we were opening for a really big band, and there was like thousands of people, and that was the only time, because like I remember the first song that I played hundreds of times, I couldn't remember how it went, and the rest of the band already was playing, and I was just like moving my hand and like screaming stuff in the microphone.
Don't fail me now.
But other than that, I never really had an issue. But it's funny because once I started doing the stand-up thing, I don't get to do it very often. So it's not like I get to go out every night of the week and whatever, but I haven't really been nervous. It's usually the first few seconds before you get up there. And then like, but what I've been doing lately is I kind of just, I know I like this. Like I want to make these guys laugh. Like I want them to feel my pain and laugh at it. And then like, but the funniest thing is,
sorry, I mean, I'm not like laughing at them, like with that.
Yeah. But like for some reason, the last time I performed, I don't know what happened. Yeah. But this is actually a funny story. I don't know what happened. Last time I performed, I didn't bomb, which is always something you don't know, because it could kill at one place, and then the next, for some reason, no one thinks anything's funny.
Right.
But it wasn't that. But as soon as I got up on stage, all of a sudden, I got like dry cotton mouth. My tongue was like sticking to the side of my mouth. Yeah. I couldn't get anything out. And I'm like, what? It affected my entire performance. It wasn't as good as it could have been. I only had like 3 minutes, because it was like a bam, 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 people going up and only got 3 minutes. Yeah. So I was up and off, but like, it felt like forever. And like, for some reason, my tongue wasn't working. And that night I talked with Kevin Nealon, and I was talking with him, and I was like, this is so funny because I was like, hey, Kevin, has this ever happened to you? Where you get like cotton mouth like that? Cause like, I don't know what happened. I wasn't nervous, but then it started I started feeling nervous. Yeah. So all of a sudden now I'm like, I can't talk. And his relatable story to me, which basically was like, yeah, you got cottonmouth at a stupid open mic. His relatable story to me was like, oh yeah, I got cottonmouth once when I was on the Johnny Carson show.
Yep. Like, more Kevin.
Yeah, and then he goes, just bring some water with you. That was like, right. That was his like, okay, I guess I'll bring water with me now when I go.
I mean, isn't there that ubiquitous like bar stool with a bottle of water on it? Like, don't they give you?
But not for 3 minutes.
Sure, of course not. I mean, I would need it. I mean, I understand that. Like, that happens, and then it just is like, but that's that physical manifestation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like,
I could have just went with it and made it funny somehow, I guess. But
yeah,
I was trying that. Maybe it was because I was trying a couple jokes that I had never done before, and I didn't know if they were going to work. So maybe I was like unconsciously super nervous. I don't know. But anyways, I was like,
part of that performance. Like sometimes you have to use it then, right? Like,
yeah. You
start bringing that whole thing like into your act. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you have more than 3 minutes, like, you know, you have some other kind of road you can that can lead you down, and you can use it to your advantage. You know, I can only imagine. You know, that's it's weird because when you're doing that, you're up there by yourself, just like with the poetry thing. You know, you don't have the band. You're just there, and you're like, what do I do with this? Everyone's looking at me. Yeah, it's funny though. I think it's like, if it happens again, I'm definitely gonna just like, I'm going to acknowledge it and just talk about it, maybe, you know. But hey, I would love if you would love to. I'd love for you to be able to read a couple poems, if you want to. But I thought maybe before we do that, I wanted to show you some fan art real quick, if that's cool. And then I'll do a couple poems, if that's awesome. Yeah. How many poems you want me to read?
How many you feel comfortable with?
I mean, you know, a handful, I guess. So you let me know. I mean, it's like none of them are going to be super long. You know, they're probably like a minute and a half each.
Yeah,
you know?
just read a few of them or so. It'd be awesome.
Okay, cool. Yeah, great. We'll do.
Cool. All right. So here's some fan art to show you.
That's how I see myself. That's it. I like that.
This is by Ray Shipman, by the way.
Okay, thanks, Ray. Ray definitely sees me physically, and then like my internal mental state there. Yeah, coming out of the eyes. Yeah.
Very awesome. This is by Jacques Lemonnier. Mr. Jacques. You look like a very astute poet.
Oh, that's the one from the back of the book. Okay, yeah, that's cool. I like that style.
Then this one's like poetry. You got to really look at it.
A little bit of Randy Newman on me there. I'll take it.
Yeah, I can see that. That's pretty funny.
Who did that?
This is by Pablo Salas.
Oh, cool.
So, I love
these are so different.
Lines. Oh yeah.
Oh, just like the style. Oh, this is really cool. Let's see.
And this one is by Paula Petlawani.
Yeah. Oh, that also sees me, especially with the hair there. Yeah. I think that was one of the book posts. Okay, yeah. I've also got a little bit of like a Seussian kind of hair thing happening there.
There's a tsunami. That's a new made up word that you can use.
That happened. Yeah, cool. Is that paint? Was that paint or is that?
Yeah, this is.
Okay.
I'm not sure. I think it looks like gouache or acrylic or something like that. So this, I don't know what inspired.
That's definitely not a picture that's been taken.
Yeah. This is by Juan Gastelum. I don't know what. I don't know where this comes from, but
I don't either. I don't think I want to know. This is not a promo picture that's out there, and thankfully. Am I on the phone or what?
Yeah, it looks like you're on the phone.
Yeah. Well,
very interesting.
Yeah, people will go to interesting places wherever they're going to go.
Yeah. This one's pretty cool. This is by Daniel Sheldon. It's pretty interesting style. I like it.
That is really, yeah. It's got a bit of real gaunt Richard Ashcroft cheekbones from mid-90s. That's cool, man.
Yeah, the color in it's pretty awesome. It's just like
really, yeah.
I think this is, I'm not 100%, but I think this is all digital, but it looks it's got a nice tradition, like watercolory something going on there. It's kind of cool.
This is so cool that this is part of the podcast. I love that people take the time to do this.
Oh yeah, I just think it's fun to, like, you know, because I don't ever know what's coming, you know.
Yeah.
So this is interesting. This is by Dominic Zeilinger, and he told me he wasn't. He was trying to draw you from the front and didn't feel like he was quite getting it just right. So he did another one. So he did like a side version as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's kind of cool style.
Yeah, interesting. Totally different. Mind blowing. Yeah, I think I know which one that one's from, kind of. Maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I know, isn't that funny? Like, I think some people end up like looking you up on Facebook or something and just trying to, you know, find different pictures. And I only share a couple pictures with people. So
yeah, I mean, there's definitely, from all the albums and shows over the years, there's probably no shortage of any era of like promo pictures from the last, 2 decades. But
yeah. Oh, this is the final one, but this one I thought was so awesome. This is by Christine Varadi.
Oh yeah, that's based off the photograph that Dan Johnson took. That was when we were in the studio in 2019 when we started working on this new record.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, that's really interesting. I love how it's the in and out of focus aspects of it.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, this I really like this one a lot. Really cool. I love the handling of the hair as well. It just has such a there's like a nice focus and out of focus thing that's happening. It's really it's pretty cool. So awesome work.
All these are reminding me how bad my current self haircut is. I'm gonna have to go hold on to some of these and see if I can't go back to some of those, if not better, more drastic.
Oh man, I had man, I got my hair cut recently, and it was really funny because I hadn't gotten my hair cut in like 3 or 4 months at least.
Okay.
And the time before that, I was, things weren't really open. Mm-hmm. And so my hair was driving me crazy. And one day I just got up and I was so annoyed. I took a shaver and I just shaved the sides and the back of my head up enough so I could wear a hat and not look like a crazy, because my hair was like going everywhere and like, it was just a crazy mess. And everyone in my family is like, what did you do? And I was like, well, maybe you guys can fix the top a little bit. Oh, the other thing I did is I was like, how hard is it to cut guys' hair? Like, I just kind of shaved it short so it looks good if I wear a hat. And then I just took the scissor and I just started like chopping it, just chopping, and just, okay, a little off here. And it just looks, pretty punk rock, I guess. But it was at least not all over the place, like shaggy. And then my 14-year-old daughter was like, let me see if I can try to make it look better. and she spent 2 hours trying to cut my hair. And I was like, it's fine. Just leave it. I'm going to wear a hat. And it had like nicks and stuff. So when I showed up to get my hair cut at an actual barber, like 3 months later, after that fiasco grew out, the barber, she goes, so what's the story here? Like, what happened?
I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's funny. But then I got a proper haircut, so felt good finally. But anyways, man, I would love to hear some whatever you feel like you want to get into. And
sure.
And this is all from your new book, right?
Yeah, it's all from In the Night Field. It came out on June 1st.
Awesome.
And I really like the front cover artwork and design was done by Adam Bohannon, who's done a lot of book covers. I really enjoyed like the color palette and the way the back looks. Like, just really did a nice job. So I want to shout out
awesome
to Adam for doing the cover design. So that's such a huge part of the process.
Oh yeah.
I'm going to start with the first poem in the second section of the book, which is a poem that takes its title from a Van Morrison song. And the song is called You Don't Pull No Punches, But You Don't Push the River. And it's on his album Veeden Fleece, I think from 1974. One of my favorite albums of his. And so this is a poem called William Blake and the Eternals. After Van. I was a late arrival here. Years spent pulling my voice apart like a wishbone for song. I started a band to meet girls and metaphysicians. We called ourselves William Blake and the Eternals. Something was missing. I sang gulls. It sounded like girls in an English accent. I sang, what is emptiness to what is no longer empty? We had no hits, obviously. They dropped us in late spring with the noise of a coffee mate clicking. They'd done the numbers and no. It took a sleepless year in a stranger's basement on Monticello not to kill myself. I sang, I've done the numbers and no. Our only song had been a poem about a man holding a lantern at the end of the long hallway, lined with books and firewood. He haunted me, as did his horse, which all night would shift its legs, stamping gently the floorboards. The song was called Farriers. I sang it only once in Montana in late August '89, as my father and I stood in a field at dusk, and with the fog holding everything, a yoke of starlight lifted from him, weightless and lifetimes ago. That's William Blake and the Eternals. All right.
That's awesome.
Right on. Yeah. Just talking about music got me thinking like maybe that's it's a place I could start.
Yeah.
Let's see. So a lot of the poems in the book have like a latitude and longitude coordinate. Is that?
Yeah, I see that. Yeah.
Can't see shit. And this one's for Chicago, particularly a place I lived in, Chicago. 41.9740 degrees north, 87.6782 degrees west. I'm less the buildings I used to live in, and more the strangers passing in their windows. The woman dancing with her baby, holding him high. A man carrying laundry to the bedroom with a beer. I return your shadow to where I found it in me, beside chimneys on Damon Avenue, in an alley piling breath into January. I live in too much silence. There needs to be someone in the car, the room, the bed. The world in its heartbreak of mastery wants me undone. To come here knowing nothing should want to speak, except the wind and frost on the grass, in shadows of trees on Winnemac. This all starts to sound the same. The city, the block, my assurances, the deficits they make of memory. Yesterday, I met the woman I'd lived with for years, my remembering a bath, her knees, islands in the cooling water. I'm afraid describing things ruins them. That's not true. It was me who asked what the body wanted and didn't listen for the answer.
That's awesome.
Right on. Should I do one more? Do you want one more?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Let's see.
Hey, I have an idea.
Yeah,
actually.
Yeah.
actually, let me just throw this out there real quick.
Yeah, of course.
I want you to let people know where they can find your stuff and everything. Like, let them know what your Instagram and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Would you be opposed to playing something? I see the piano behind you, playing something out towards just to finish off. If you don't want to, that's fine. But I just thought it might be kind of cool if you want to just play something.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Happy to do it. Well, we may have to, I may have to slightly adjust the audio, just so that it's not all distorted with playing and singing. But I can do that fairly.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
Yeah, happy to do it. So people can visit augurybooks.com. That's AUGURY books.com. And you can get the book there. You can also order it from bookshop.org. You can order it from your local independent bookstore. Pretty much anywhere you buy books, you can order the book.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and if you want me to put links for you at the end, like in the chat, I can do that. So you have.
I'll put some stuff up. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So yeah, people can go to Augury Books to get the book, and then you can also just go to cameronmcgill.com, and I have all the music related things there and all the poetry related things there as well, just depending on which if you want to choose words or music, you can go to either of those worlds. So yeah,
awesome. That's awesome.
All right. Okay. This is a poem called Mythos, and there's an epigraph at the beginning from the poet Yanis Ritsos. I have a bird in my head, he says. I can't get it out. Mother, I am wrong. We are not from stone, but my memories make hard things of beauty. There is a small bird that lives inside me, telling everything backwards to my birth. There, he says, and scares from a wooden table where a chair has been pushed away. He moves between my ribs, holds them like branches with a voice that calms horses like the dark boards of dreams. In a field outside the town of my youth, he waits like a young widow for sleep. The name he calls my blood is yours. He leaves his work in the corners of my eyes, in drawings on the walls of my mouth, where a man stands in a field, an ornament to moonlight. Sometimes he lies down, others he takes a knee, a bath, a life.
That was awesome, man. Thank you so much. It's been awesome. Yeah, and thank you so much for joining me for this, man. This is I've been wanting to do this for a while, so I really appreciate you being able to take the time and just to have it's really cool just to have a conversation about all of this, and I think people are going to find it really interesting. So thank you so much, man. It's awesome.
Absolutely my pleasure. I'm glad it happened when it did.
And everyone's got to pick up a copy of this book, because help another artist out, and also, most of the people that listen to this podcast are artists, and you're going to find a lot of inspiration. I'm 100% sure of that. So, awesome.
Well, I'm grateful for the time, and thanks for introducing me to your peoples and for having me on. It's been a fun conversation. Do you want me to do the song?
Anything you want to play, man. I just think it would be awesome to,
My back will be.
That's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just adjust the audio just a little bit. All right. So we've been working on a new record that we're mixing right now. So I think that will it'll probably come out really late. This is probably early next year.
All right.
But this is the song. This is a newer song that's going to be on the next album. It's
awesome.
called It's called I'm Gonna Blow Up.
Maybe broke, it's just a little bruising. Maybe I'm lost, it's just a little losing. However the cost may be, oh, accumulated, that I'm not drugs for how from me you faded. Maybe sad, it's the pilot light of happy, maybe I've been had. Or it's just somebody's having, however the cause may be. Overinflated, that I'm not drugs for how from me fade away. Maybe I lied, it's just a little lie. Maybe I came, it's just a little dying. However the cost may be, oh, frustrated, that I'm not drugs for how from me faded. I'm feeding on a firefly, firefly's lungs. I'm feeding on a firefly, firefly's lungs. I'm feeding on a firefly, firefly's lungs. Feeding on a firefly, firefly's lungs. I'm feeding on a firefly, firefly's lungs. Feeding on a firefly, firefly's lungs. Gonna blow up.
Yeah, man. That was awesome, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to sit and talk to you for hour and a half. It was great. This is a lot of fun. Anytime you want to do it.
For sure, man. That was so great. And thank you everyone for watching and hanging out and supporting the podcast. Everyone check out Cameron's music, check out his book, and we'll see you all next time.